Hey everyone, it's Ellie Mae with Artesprix, and in this video we are going to take a baby bodysuit and we are going to use it to create a fun design using the Artesprix stamp pads and the Artesprix letter stencil here. You can also use the Artesprix Sublimation markers as well. We'll see what I end up using along the way, but I do have this marker sitting upright for about 20 minutes before I go to use it. I just have that in a jar ready to go in case I do want to use it. So let's go through the rest of the supplies here. So we have our Artesprix protective paper, which is one of the most important parts of the entire process. Sublimation is science. It is a sublimation ink that when it is subjected to high heat, it turns into a gas, and that gas transfers onto your sublimation blank. That means you want to protect your workspace of your heat press or whatever heat source you are using on the top and the bottom. You do not want the sublimation ink to get onto your press. So we're going to use that. You need basic copy paper. Yes, copy paper, that's all you need. No specialized paper for this process. We can design on our copy paper. If we don't like it, set it aside, try again. So you have lots of options with the Artesprix products. Then we have some basic supplies of a pencil. Pencil does not transfer to your sublimation blank, so it is a great way to sketch out your templates or even your design if you want to do that. A pair of scissors, and then we also have the Artesprix heat tape that is specialized tape to withstand the high heat. And I've already mentioned your Artesprix sublimation pads. I'll be using a sponge, and then the Artesprix sublimation markers. I also have the protective pad. This is one of my favorite products in my studio for any time I'm working with a hot material. It protects my workspace. And then the Artesprix stencil and your baby bodysuit, and let's get started. So to start with, I am working with a 24-month bodysuit. They do have other sizes available. The first thing that we're going to want to do is decide on where we want our image on our bodysuit and then how large. So I have just some regular copy paper. These are just half sheets, which I think are going to work out really great for this design. Now I don't need to have it be the full size. You definitely could, but I'm going to focus on the middle of the bodysuit. So I'm probably going to keep my design within this area. Again, pencil does not transfer, so this is a great way that I can either sketch out designs or sketch out a template in order to work with that. And then I could have the entire design within this area all the way on this half sheet of paper if I wanted to. So we're going to create along the way and we're going to see what happens. So once I have my design, I can set that down here. Now I'm going to be working with the stencil along with some of the sublimation stamp inks and a sponge. But the first thing I want to do is I'm going to go kind of old school. I'm going to take a blank sheet of copy paper, fold it over here, and I'm going to create my own stencil with a basic shape. So what I want is I actually want to do 2 hearts. So I'm simply going to fold that over, and I'm just going to use just this ordinary copy paper. There is no magic to this. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to cut out a heart shape. And you can do this however you want. If you wanted to draw it first, you could, and then cut around that, or you can just keep going. And it's copy paper, so if I don't like that, that's a little bit, let's see here, we'll get this here. It's a little bit big for my design, so I'm going to just come down here, cut out another heart shape, and I think I like that much better. So I have one shape there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing over here just so that I have 2. I'm going to be using 2 separate colors, so it'll make it a little bit easier. And I can choose what I'd like to use. So now I have this other heart shape. And I think that's going to work out pretty good. I could just simply use the same one so they kind of match. It just really depends. You could also use this portion of it, and we could simply place it on here and use this as a negative stencil and stencil around it. So that might be what I do. I'm going to do one with the negative and show you that, and then I'll do one with the full. So the first one that we will do, let's do this. Maybe we'll just do an outline. So the great part about Artesprix is that since it is copy paper, I can just test it out, see what I like. If I don't like it, I can try something new, and it is always interesting and fun to see how it turns out. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to start with the lighter color here. And I want to make sure, I'm just going to bring these lines down so I kind of know where I want to keep my design, because I do want to use this stencil, and hopefully this will fit in here, but I do have a little bit of wiggle room on here. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use this as my stencil. I'm actually going to just take a piece of heat tape, and if I'm careful, I can reuse this, and I'm going to tape this down just because then it's easier, especially when I'm on camera, and it's not going to move on me. So since I have a little bit of leeway up there, I can do that. Then I'm going to take my Artesprix stamp. This is the pink stamp ink. I'm going to take that lid off and I just have a craft sponge. You could use all kinds of different things. And let's just sponge on some ink. Keep in mind that when you stamp onto your copy paper, the colors are going to be lighter than what the final project is going to show up as. The Artesprix or Sublimation ink is lighter when you first apply it, and then it brightens up and gives you the full color once you are have heated that up onto your Sublimation blank. So this is a complete personal preference here on how you create this. So this is the pink Sublimation ink, and I'm simply just sponging that on. I'm going to cover that up so I don't get it on myself. And then if I'm careful, I can simply remove this, and I have a heart shape here. Now I'm going to just carefully remove this. You could reuse your stencil if you wanted to, especially if you're creating multiples. This would be a great idea for a baby shower. What we can do here, if we wanted to do the outline, let's see, I want to make this a little bit more, well, let's just do one here, and let's see. What I might do is, I'm not going to be able to, I'm going to tape this here and just work with that. And then I'm just going to set that aside, other piece aside. I'm actually going to take, I think I want to do a paintbrush. So I'm going to take a paintbrush, and since I'm doing the outline, I want to keep it, if I used a smaller sponge, I could probably keep it kind of in an outline, but we're going to try this out, see how it looks. So I'm going to take this paintbrush and just sponge on, you can see the ink coming on that. And then I'm just going to kind of work away at the edges and make this kind of like a starburst, I guess you'd say. Pick up some ink. Again, your colors are going to be lighter. I'm working from the inside out so that my color, the main color of it, the majority of the ink, it's on the outer or the inside edge, it's on my stencil. So it's not as heavy on the paper. So we're just going to give this kind of a little interest. Use whatever's in your stash with these projects. Just like you're using plain ordinary copy paper, think about what you have in your craft studio, what you have available to you on what you could use with this. You could use regular stamps. You can use sponges and create all kinds of different visual effects. And just keep going until you think you have it like you would like it. Okay, and then I'm going to take this piece here, I'm going to secure it up here, and then carefully remove this. I don't want to leave that portion out. If you have any ink on that, piece of heat tape, you don't want to reuse it. And then I'm going to wash out my paintbrush with my sublimation ink. I do keep dedicated brushes for my sublimation ink, but I do wash them afterwards. So then that gives us a little bit different look. So you can use either the positive of a stencil, or you could use a negative that you've cut out as well. I'm going to set that aside. And then what I have here is I have the Artesprix stencil lettering. And this is a nice sturdy stencil that we can take and we can place our design. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to practice on this. Since I've already got this sponged, I'm going to practice over here just so that I can kind of get my spacing out. And I'm going to also use a ruler. So we're going to practice first. You don't have to, but since I'm on camera, I am going to. I'm just going to draw a straight line. And then now I'm able to use this with my stencil. So then I'm going to simply draw out these lines. You could either use your Artesprix sublimation marker, which I think is what I'm going to do. So I'm simply going to bring it in here and just use it. You could sponge with ink, but sometimes that can leak out underneath. So I'm just going to take this black marker and I think that is great. I don't actually need to color it in on my test, but you can if you want, and then you could use this again. So then I'm going to just use my next letter, kind of space that out, see what it looks like. So this could be for practice, and then if it turns out, you could actually use it for another design. Copy paper, don't like it, just throw it away. You're not out that much. So then I think I have this pretty well. And as you can see, this goes well very quickly with these stencil letters. Ah, this is going to look great. One final letter, and you do want to do your text backwards. So if you noticed, it is not forward facing. When you, let me finish this letter here. When you transfer it, everything you transfer is going to be opposite, because you are transferring it from the copy paper onto your sublimation blank. So it's going to, once you transfer it, it's going to read properly. So then now, once that looks good to me, it's going to fit where I want it to. So I'm simply going to then take this and do the same thing on the stencil with the stencil, and then I will speed up the video. And then once you have your design, let's set that aside. You can also wash your stencil, but it's not going to hurt it if you do have sublimation ink on that stencil when you go to use it the next time. So now we have our design. Again, pencil's not going to transfer, so I have this design ready to go. I have an extra just in case. If I didn't like this, I could do this again on this extra piece of copy paper. I'm going to set that aside. And then what I want to do is, I have my design here. I'm going to go ahead and just cut this tag off. And again, this is a 24-month, and I'm going to select where I want this design. So I could cut it down a little bit to size, just so I can place that a little bit easier. Making sure not to cut off any of my ink that I've put on there. and then simply place it where I would like it onto the bodysuit. You can center it based on the entire design or your lettering. So now we have this, but the first thing I want to do is I'm actually going to press this. I'm going to do a pre-press on this just to get any of the moisture out. So I'm going to simply set it over onto my heat source, and I'm going to make sure that any of the seams are off the press. That would interfere with your pressure when you go to do your sublimation. Just going to give this a quick press. And then also something to have in handy, since I pressed that, I'm just going to let it cool a little bit, is having a lint roller handy. This is going to help remove any fibers that might have been gotten onto the bodysuit during the process if you took it out of the package. So if you have any fibers or dirt on the blank, it can leave speckles or blue spots. So the sublimation ink will bind to that when it is pressed. Once I have this, I'm first going to take and grab my protective paper, and I'm going to cut out 2 sheets, one for the top, one for the bottom. I want to make sure to protect my heat press, so I'm going to take one of these. I'm going to put it on the bottom of my heat press platen, and then this one is going to go on the top. Now that I have that ready, I'm going to take my design and I'm going to place it where I would like it onto the bodysuit, and then I'm going to secure it with some heat tape. This is Artesprix heat tape, and it is tape specially designed for sublimation and the high heat that we are going to be using. So for this bodysuit, we are going to be using a temperature of 390 for 50 seconds. I want to make sure that I get this secured because I do not want my blank or my design to move on top of that blank during the heat press process or when I lift the top platen of my press. So I'm going to be very careful. Now that I have that, I have a piece of protective paper on my bottom platen. I'm going to move this on top of it over onto my press, making sure my press is at 390. And I'm going to position this so the seams are off the press. Seams can interfere with the pressure and getting an even press onto the garment. Then the most important part is I'm going to take my protective paper, my second sheet, I'm going to place it on top. So I have a sandwich of protective paper, my bodysuit, my design is on top of that, and then a layer of protective paper. I'm going to close the press for 50 seconds and we'll come back. When the timer beeps, I'm going to carefully lift the platen on my heat press and just let it settle just a little bit. And then it's going to be extremely hot, so you want to be very careful when you are removing that. I'm going to remove the protective paper first. You can see that the ink actually transferred through the copy paper. That's completely normal, but you do not want to reuse this or this could transfer to your object or the heat press platen the next time if you did. So I'm just going to throw this away. Then I'm going to grab this and I'm going to place it on top of my Artesprix protective mat that's going to protect my surface. Same thing with the bottom layer. If there is any ink, you do not want to reuse this. And now is the time for the reveal. So I'm going to just carefully remove this heat tape and take a peek. Ooh, that looks good. Okay, so let's turn it this way. It is cooled now. And then I'm going to just carefully remove this. And you can see the final colors. Move that out of the way so it doesn't get on my... So this would be a fun idea that you could use for a gift or even for a baby shower and have everybody decorate their own little baby bodysuit. Make sure to check out the links in the description below on this video for a list of the supplies as well as additional tips and inspiration for the Artesprix products. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.